if you say that social media is marketing or advertising on a billboard is marketing, you're going to get little to no results because it really is only a part of your marketing. And if you do all the pieces together, you're going to see the results compound. And this little bit of results and this little bit of results and this little bit of results is going to get you all the results you're looking for, or at least most of it, from your marketing. So I just try to make sure that people know that it is marketing. It's a part of it, though. Okay. It's only about 1/5 of most people's marketing plans.
But now the response is, you're telling me I have to do all these different things and I can barely keep up with my client work or my customer work. So where am I going to find the time to... Hello and welcome to the J. Wells CFO Show. I am your host, Jeremy Wells, and with me today is Elizabeth Pampalone. Elizabeth is a social media maven. She's going to tell us all kinds of amazing things that we can do with social media to up our marketing game, to improve our businesses. So with that, Elizabeth, I'm going to turn it over to you. Introduce yourself, tell us about yourself and how you got to be doing what you're doing now.
Well, I actually have been in business for myself for 13 years, so wow. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And I love it. I was a software developer when I first started out, and I was in a cube, and I hated that. So I started my own company in 2007, and just kind of kept going. Like it just didn't seem to, there wasn't any like ending point. Like, oh, when I reach this, I'll be done, or I just kept evolving, and my business evolved, and so now I actually build websites in a day, and I have a 5-day system where I help small businesses to create all of their marketing for the entire year in 5 days. So that's what I do now.
Interesting. So, what does that process look like? How do you plan a whole year's worth of marketing in that short of a time period? Where do you start?
A lot of times the brand is the first piece. Sometimes people's brand doesn't exactly portray or convey exactly what they want it to convey, and it doesn't just have to do with the logo. It has to do with the feeling and the messaging and all that stuff that goes with it. So we really work on that. That's an entire day. Okay. We actually write an ebook on the brand day as well. A lot of people walk away thinking, oh my gosh, I just wrote an entire book. How is that possible?
Yeah.
And then the second day we work on the website. A lot of times, since we fixed the brand now, the website needs to be adjusted. And then the third day we work on social media. We create 6 to 12 months of posts. The fourth day we work on blogging. We actually create 12 months of posts for that. And have them all done ahead of time. And then the fifth day, we either work on a couple different things. They have like options. One of the options is email marketing, and we create all of the campaigns that we'll need for the year. And then the other option we would have is membership. So a lot of people want like a subscription-based model or something like that. And that takes its own day to create and set up and, kind of create like all the pieces. So we go through that for a day if the person wants that instead. So it just depends, but it's a 5-day system.
Yeah. So when, I start a small business and it's, Acme Plumbing Company, or it's, Jeremy Wells Plumbing Company. When do I go from this is just a company that I'm running to now I have a brand? Where is that transition and how do I get to that?
A lot of people start businesses because they know something, and then they kind of work for friends and family, and then they kind of start expanding. And when you get to the point where you either want to go full-time or you are full-time and you need that income because you've made that leap already, that's when that's really important. It's almost even just before that as well, because when you're starting to feel like this is not my hobby, this is my business, then you do need that brand. At any point when you think you have a business or you view yourself as a business, the brand is super important. And while your brand may change over time and evolve and adjust, starting with something that people can like latch onto and go, this is my company that I use for this, or this is the company I use for this. If you don't have a brand, it's just, oh, that Jeremy guy, I think I met him at this other thing. And like, I don't remember his last name, but I think there was like a W or something, so no one really knows anything about you at that point. They just know, oh, you did that finance stuff. Like, right. So there's no message that they can like take with them and go, hey, I met this Jeremy guy. His name is Jeremy Wells. He's great. He does financial stuff. And this is the slogan I remember, or the tagline I remember, or the message that resonated with me, which is why I remember who he is. So things like that that can kind of solidify you as you start to tell other people and as they start to tell their friends. Anytime you consider yourself a business, you have to start with that brand.
Interesting. So the brand is really what makes it to where people are starting to talk about, what I can do for them, what the actual business aspect of the relationship is, rather than that's just some guy I just met.
Right. Right. And you want them to be able to take something with them that either resonates with them, like that story that resonated with them, or that tagline or that name of the company, so that when they go out, they actually do mention to someone, they have something to say that's something you would want them to say.
Interesting. So what if I sit here and I say, I'm just a plumber. I'm just an electrician. I'm just a whatever, right? Like, I do this one thing and there's a big market for that. So I'll just, I'll find clients, I'll find customers. It's no big deal. What's your response to that? Or, another thing I hear commonly is, I want the focus to be on me. I don't want to be just another, Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever, right? I want to know the client is doing business with me. They're not doing business with just some, big unknown company.
Right, right. And the differentiators are really, and a lot of people say this. I mean, there's a book called Story Brand that talks about this. There's Russell Brunson talks about this. A lot of people talk about this, and the answer is the why. I mean, why Starbucks does what it does. They have their own why, but it's so global and so big, and their impact is so wide that we don't really connect with the why as much a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when they're like, oh, this specific coffee is from this specific, and they're like getting really micro with it, then we're like, oh, I can relate to that.
Okay.
But when we actually go to this other level and it's us and we're saying, you're talking to me, I'm making an impact in my little circle, in my community, and yeah, maybe I want it to go bigger, but I'm starting, here,
Right.
then you don't necessarily want the focus to be on you as a person, or even on the customer as a customer. You want them to be on the focus to be on why you're even doing this. So the reason that I do what I do is because I love to see other small businesses not stress out. The number one thing people go to bed and think is, crap, I forgot to post on social media today.
Right.
Like, people go to bed thinking about that, which I think is so ridiculous. But
Yeah.
it happens because it's like you're laying there and you're like, okay, the list of things I need to do, or the list of things I didn't get done. And social media is one of those things because it's just on the back burner.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, but at the same time, it doesn't need to be your all consuming either.
Yeah.
So when I see people just say, oh my gosh, I feel so much better, I feel like I have a business. One woman came to me and we worked together for the 5 days. At the end of it, she goes, I'm going to Baptist. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to Baptist? What's going on? She's like, she was a medical company. And she said, I have the confidence now that I actually have a real company. We didn't change her name. We changed her logo a little bit. Like, we didn't change a whole lot, but the way that she perceived her own company was different, and it gave her the confidence to tell other people about it in a different way. So it was like, that's why I do this, is because I want to see people have that confidence that says, I could do anything now, because they really can.
I can definitely relate to that. There, when a client hires me to do their accounting and their taxes for them, I'm not changing anything about their business. I'm not changing their expertise in that field. I'm not, going there and showing them different ways of doing things. They're still running their business the same way, but it just gives them a clarity over what's actually happening on the financial side of their business that, like you said, it's no longer a stressor to them. It's no longer a burden to them. So yeah, it ultimately comes down to, I think, whatever your particular field is, whether it's accounting or marketing or HR or whatever, it's just helping these small business owners rest a little bit easier at night, because they know that that's one aspect of their business that they don't have to worry about anymore.
Exactly.
So what is the difference between marketing and social media and branding and all this, and just advertising? Can I just put a billboard up and now all of a sudden I'm doing my marketing. Put a commercial on the radio or TV.
Right. So do you know, and I'm going to give this like terms that everyone's kind of thinking now since it's like early, early in the year, right?
Yeah.
When you go and say, okay, I want to lose weight, you have a goal. I want to lose weight. And you say, okay, I'm going to exercise. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to go to bed earlier. I'm going to, like, you have this list of things. I'm not going to drink wine. I'm not, you have this list of things you're going to do and not do. But they're all a part of what it means to lose weight. You have to do all of it. Otherwise, you get little to no results. I mean, you might get some results, but it's very minimal. If you don't do all of it, you just feel defeated.
Right.
Or I'm just eating differently, or I'm just not drinking wine, whatever that one thing that you tried is. So a lot of times what people do is they take social media and they use it as their one thing. So they're just eating a little better, and so social media becomes this little to no result thing that they've been putting money and time and effort into, just like when you want to lose weight. And so I always try to tell people that social media is a part, and it's actually a part of like 1/20th, and it could be 1/5 in most cases. It's 1/5 of what you're doing. So there's so many different ways you can market. You mentioned several of them just now. I mean, we could list, like I said, 20 different things just off the top of our head that would be considered marketing: radio, TV, billboards, email newsletters, social media, doing stuff on your, like, blogging, like, is considered marketing because you're actually sending that out. So there's so many different options for that if you say that social media is marketing or advertising on a billboard is marketing, you're going to get little to no results because it really is only a part of your marketing. And if you do all the pieces together, you're going to see the results compound. And this little bit of results and this little bit of results and this little bit of results is going to get you all the results you're looking for, or at least most of it, from your marketing. So I just try to make sure that people know that it is marketing. It's a part of it, though. Okay. It's only about 1/5 of most people's marketing plans.
But now the response is, you're telling me I have to do all these different things and I can barely keep up with my client work or my customer work. So where am I going to find the time to
Well, you just take 5 days and work with me.
Right, exactly.
I really believe that it should only take a person, you should only really focus on it for about a week out of your year. Wow. And then the other things that come through, like someone said to me, well, I'm a realtor. How do I know what houses are going to sell in 6 months? I don't. The problem is we focus too much on the momentary, like what's happening right this second. And we forget about all the stuff we tell people 20 million times a day that is the same, and it's going to be the same from now until the end of time.
Right,
right. And it's going to be the same all the time. Now, when something happens, let's say you win an award, let's say in your field an interest rate changes, like something exciting, right? It's new and you hear it and you're like, I've got to share this. And so you feel compelled to do that. But the other stuff, the consistency part, is where I come in, because no one can stay consistent. Like you said, you've got client work, you've got families, you've got all this stuff you're doing, plus all the other things you add on to it, like a podcast and all these other things you want to do, right, that it just becomes a lot, and your day is just done. Like I said, you go to bed at night and you're like, last thing I didn't do was post on social media, or I forgot to post this, or I forgot to say that. And it's the stuff that we could have said 6 months ago because we already know it's the same stuff. You know that March 15th is kind of a big deal. Right. You know that April 15th is kind of a big deal. Like, you know that January 31st or 30th is like a big deal because of the W-2s. Like, so know all of these things ahead of time. You don't have to know them on the day. You can post them on the day, but they don't have to be shouted from the rooftops from your phone, you physically doing it on that day. So it really is about those things that you can do ahead of time.
So I don't need to be thinking in early April, what am I going to send out to my client newsletter about the tax deadline? That should have been, I knew April 15th is going to come around the same day every year, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that like mid-July, June, you can tell people, start looking at your books for the last 6 months and do an audit. Like, you can start reminding people of these little things along the way that like you wish people would do. Like, oh gosh, if you guys had just looked at your books in July, you would have seen that you could have bought that machinery you wanted, or, you know, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And so then you can start telling people these things along the way, and whether they see them or not, it's a hit or miss with social media, but you can put it in your newsletter, you can put it, and you can do all that ahead of time. You can put a blog out about it. You can have a whole month themed on, you know, mid-year reviews and stuff like that. Like, you can build all this stuff ahead of time because there's so much content that you could be putting that we just don't, because when we actually sit down to type up a blog, because it's April and we're talking about taxes and we need to type it up,
Yeah.
our brain is like so overloaded, or like in your case, you don't have any time to do it in anyway.
Right.
You're
Right.
super busy. So
Yeah.
it's really about getting everything as much done ahead of time as all the stuff kind of comes crashing down on us. Our brain is able to be open to those kinds of ideas. The other thing I do is I sit with someone for a whole day. It's 8 hours. It's like you're at work, but it allows your brain to focus on one thing for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And we don't give ourselves that ever. We never do that. We're multitasking and we're doing 50 million things all the time.
Right.
So this really gives you that creative space to go, I only have to think about blogging for 8 hours. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right.
So it gives you that you're more creative, and then you have someone to brainstorm with, and it's a lot more of a, I don't know, it's just a very good creative environment, and you can actually think of so many different things that you probably wouldn't have if you just sat down at the moment and was like, I got to write a blog about tax day.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of challenges do your clients face when they come in for this 5-day? What are some of the common things, that some of those common roadblocks that sometimes it might take to that like 4th or 5th day before you finally figure out like, okay, this is the problem, here's what we're going to do about it. Some of these just major roadblocks that seem to keep coming up with small business owners in terms of marketing, content, all these kinds of issues.
There is a principle, I don't remember the name of it, but there's a principle that says if you're given an hour to do a task, it will take an hour to do the task. And if most web designers, for example, like a web design or brand even, they'll give you a whole month. It's a 4-week process. It's a lot of back and forth in email. And when we're given 4 weeks to do something, it's going to take 4 weeks, or it's going to take 6 weeks, or it's going to take, however long, because the deadline is really not a deadline. It's just a imaginary line we set for ourselves. When someone comes to work with me, the biggest block is that I've worked with someone, we found out their brand, we figured it out in like the first hour. And they were just like, this is it. I know this is it. I can't believe we did this so quickly. And we were able to move on to other things and get more stuff done. I've had people struggle until hour 7 of the 8 hours.
Yeah.
But the thing is they had to go that whole route because in their mind, they were either stressing about, I have to get this done in 8 hours. But really, if you just come in and you're just open to it and you just think, we could get it done in an hour, we could get it done in 4 hours, we could get it done in 8 hours, it could be 9 hours. I could be sitting there for 9 hours. But if you're open to that, then it just comes. The creativity comes out. And a lot of people struggle with, how is this all going to be possible? I don't understand the process. I don't know how it's going to work, because they've never done it before. So it's new and it's an unknown. The other thing that they struggle with is when we sit down to write blogs or we sit down to write social posts or whatever it is, they have this thing in their mind that says, I should be prepared. I should have prepared for this. And it's not a test, and it's not supposed to be where I'm saying, oh yeah, come do the impossible. I'm going to laugh at you because now you're struggling. No, that has nothing to do with it. People think in their minds that they should have prepared something because they're kind of like their mind has like rest leg syndrome. Where it just can't, it's just so frantic because there's again thinking, I have to do this in 8 hours. How is this going to be done by the end of the day? I don't understand. And then they don't let their mind stop and be calm and just listen to the questions I'm asking, in the quiet. We're in a quiet room. We're in, so it's all very controlled to the point where I have people come in, and if they're open to the process, they're just breeze right through it. And it's like nothing. Like they were just like, wow, that was amazing. But then when people fight it and they're just like, I should have done this, I should have done that. And then it's too much for their brain to handle, and they overwhelm themselves.
Right.
So my biggest thing with that is that it's not necessarily that we're frustrated or we're overwhelmed with marketing or we have marketing blocks. It's that our brains are so used to a certain level of franticness that when I stop you and slow you down, unless you allow yourself to do that, it's a mindset thing. You either will and you'll have a great experience, or you won't and you'll feel rushed the whole time, even though we're not rushing, So it's definitely a mindset thing to just allow yourself the creativity.
Gotcha. Interesting. So one of the big things is it seems like every time you start researching social media, right? Where should I be posting? What should I be posting? What kind of content? First of all, there's a million different pieces of advice, first of all, but then everything seems to be contradictory, right? That you should be on this platform, not that platform. You should be producing this kind of content, not that kind of content. How do you approach this advice? Where do you try to start your clients? Where should I be posting? Where and what should I be posting?
Not everyone should be on every social media. There's actually demographics for each one. And I have an ebook that I wrote about that, and it tells you all the demographics, who is where, and you should pick the 2 or 3 that work for you, that work for your clientele. A lot of people say, oh, well, everyone's my client. Okay, then you have a brand problem, so we need to fix that. And then once you actually know who your client is, their demographics, which is like age, college education, location, like those kinds of things, male, female, all that jazz. Then you can actually look at the demographics that these platforms put out, which I put in my ebook, and find out which one is going to give you the most bang for your buck. So, for example, one of the worst things that you can do with your social media is to post on one that's going to give you very little return.
Yeah.
So the very little return ones are things like, if you don't know that Twitter, if you post something on Twitter, it's only going to last about 20 minutes. And then it's buried.
Interesting.
So if Twitter is your audience, then the 20 minutes is really important to you. You shouldn't be spending 20 minutes writing the post.
Yeah.
Or laboring or agonizing over what you said or how you said it. Now, if Twitter's your audience, that's not going to be a thing that's going to bother you, because you're going to be putting out a lot of posts. You got to do a lot, because it's only going to last 20 minutes. So you're going to have to really hustle to make a lot of posts really quickly. For example, Facebook, and I wrote this in my book as well, it's about 90 minutes, but the demographic is different. And you don't want to be spending 30, 40 minutes worrying about what you're saying in a post and how the photo looks and editing this and and all this other stuff, when you should be spending about 20 minutes on the photo itself and the post all together at the most, because you're only going to get 90 minutes worth out of it. So I really tell people to look at those kind of things, pick 2 or 3 platforms that look like they make the most sense for who you're trying to reach, and then make sure that you're not spending too much time on something that you're not going to get the return out of.
Interesting. And so aside from the traditional, or not traditional, but the major social media platforms, you also brought up email newsletters, this kind of stuff. What should I be doing in terms of balancing, trying to stay connected to my existing customers and clients versus trying to reach out to new ones? Is there a difference in the strategy there?
For me, it's just been the same.
Okay.
I tell people the same things, whether they're, someone who's never worked with me or someone who has worked with me already. I do certain things for my clients. I have something called Absolute Circle, which is for only clients. And they get a special 2-hour meeting every month with me. And it's a group meeting, but it's just for them. I do everything just for them. And it's like a training, teaching time and implementation time. And they love it. And it's great. And it keeps them on track and everything. But just for like emails and social media and stuff like that, most people, they don't remember what you posted a week ago because they're not seeing everything. So I just keep posting what I'm going to post, regardless of whether it's a new client, an existing client. And with emails, I try to keep it extremely simple. I send one thing out at a time. I don't have a newsletter, and I've never liked newsletters because it's so much especially when you get something, you're either going to read the one thing that the title is about, or you're going to just ignore the rest of it or just say, it's too much, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So I just send out one thing at a time. I might send 17 emails in a month, but it doesn't matter because people are either picking and choosing what they're going to read. Gotcha. So I actually get a daily digest from this one company that I subscribe to, and he sends out this extremely long email. I mean, it is like a good 10-15 minute read. I love his stuff is amazing. But there are some days I read it and some days I don't. But it's one thing. So if I read it because I was worried, I like the subject and I was like interested in that. And if I don't feel like I'm missing anything because I just didn't read that one thing, because he only sends out one thing at a time.
Gotcha. You mentioned Story Brand, a book that I just recently listened to on Audible myself. A lot of good information from there. There's a lot of, there's several people out there that are really, big in terms of social media, which we should be doing in terms of social media. Gary Vaynerchuk, Pat Flynn, these kinds of people. Who are you? Who would you consider a big inspiration on the way you're trying to help your clients in terms of, these big names in the field or these big books in the field, this kind of stuff? Like where, if somebody wanted to, kind of get an idea of where you're coming from, what your influences have been, where would you point them to?
I do like Gary Vee a lot. I mean, I do like, I kind of dabble in his stuff. I'm not like a, total fan follower, but he does send some stuff out that's, I think, really important. Yeah, and I repost a lot of his stuff on LinkedIn that I see. Okay. So if I really agree with it, you'll see me repost it. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, that'll be a place where I would like show a lot of those people that I'm following. And only the certain things that, like I said, that make sense to me. But when it comes to like social and like marketing specifically, Seth Godin is one of my go-tos. He's amazing. His stuff is more conceptual. It's what I call more like ethereal. It's not necessarily something you would just be able to go, oh, I should do that, and let me do it. Yep. It's something you have to like ruminate on and think about. I listened to one of his books recently. I'm trying to remember the title, but This is Marketing. And I had to like take my time with it. I couldn't just, he's short, his books are short. They're not, very long. But the concepts he was putting out, you had to like reimagine them into how would I use that, because it's such a great concept and it makes so much sense. So that's one of my go-tos, like when I'm trying to learn how do I reincorporate what he's talking about. Because I feel like he's about 5-10 years ahead of everyone in terms of marketing. And so I know that whatever he writes now, we'll be doing in like 5 years and everybody will be doing it. So, and with Gary Vee, he's more about right now, like what's happening right this moment and how can I implement something right now? One of the things he said was, he said this a couple months ago, why is everyone worrying about what they're posting on the internet? He's like, you should just post something, like stop freaking out about it's not good enough, or it's too this, or it's too that, or it's not researched enough. And I was working with a doctor the other day on blogs, and they were like, well, I need to research this more. And I'm like, it's not a research paper. You will say your opinion. You'll give a couple of like links to some articles that, we'll find, and we'll make them, like real good art, like, not WebMD or anything like that, but like something that's actual, like legitimate. Right. And we linked to a couple of things, and she was like, okay, I think I feel good about saying this out. And I know that when your reputation's on the line, those kind of things are important, but at the same time, you don't want to overanalyze it. And so Gary Vee is very much about quit overanalyzing, just get it out there, say what you mean to say. If you make a mistake, issue a retraction, an apology, a correction, whatever. But like, just say it. Like your opinion is also important too. It's not that you have to have this certain opinion that says, I have to be correct all the time. Yeah. We all make mistakes. We all say things and then go, yeah, I don't know what I was talking about. That was weird.
Yeah. No, I think I can, again, I can definitely relate to that in the field of accounting, because it's, putting information out on social media, or blogging, or that kind of stuff is, the immediate response is, well, what if somebody actually takes this seriously and goes and does this thing, and then it produces the exact opposite of what I said it would do, and now they're going to come after me, right? Because they
Yeah.
listen to me, right? And this person is a complete stranger, they're not a paying client, but I'm giving them advice and they followed it and it turned out horribly for them. That's on me. And so I think there's definitely, this is, I'm not trying to sell, a bottle of soda or a cup of coffee here. I'm actually in a professional field where people are
Mhm.
going to make, you're talking about doctors, life and death decisions, right? Based
Yep.
on a blog post I wrote, based on a tweet I just sent out,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, it is. I think in the professional field, it is difficult to wrap our heads around, taking these kinds of positions in our
Yep.
marketing, that, we have to differentiate ourselves, but at the same time, we also have to toe the line of what's standard practice in our field. Right. And so, I definitely think there's a there's a difficulty, there's a block with sharing, in these professional fields like this.
Mhm.
So how would you recommend, somebody get over that hump, aside from just, well, just post it anyway?
Yeah.
What right? What's your response to, yeah, but I don't want to get in trouble, I don't want to cause problems?
I have the same thing. I've had people come to me and kind of off the cuff say things like, "I'm paying you all this money. This better work." Like, they don't mean it, but they do
Yeah.
mean it.
Yeah. Right.
And no one is infallible.
Yeah.
Not even the Pope. I know I said it. But like, no one is infallible, and it comes down to, we all make our best decision at the time we make it. We're not standing there going, I'm going to make a bad decision and I'm going to regret it later. Like,
Yeah.
you
Right.
don't think that. You're there thinking, this is my best chance for this result, or this is my best option for this outcome that I want. And even though we do something, so just like, I read Profit First earlier in 2019, and gosh, it like freaked me out because I felt like I had been doing things wrong the whole time.
Right.
But when I switched what I was doing, it was great. Like, I felt amazing. I felt like it worked. I felt like it changed my whole business, my whole life. But if I don't continue to do it, it's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's kind of like that. Like, whenever you give advice, or whenever I give advice, or the doctor gives advice, like any of those people, the person who's taking the advice can't go, silver bullet time, I'm going to do this one thing this one time and be
Yeah.
done forever. Like, you
Yeah.
have to continue to do the work. And so when I say that I do people's marketing in 1 week for, the whole year, yeah. But that doesn't mean you go home and you sit in front of your TV and you watch Netflix and Amazon Prime for the rest of the month, because your whole marketing is done for the whole year.
Right.
You have to go out and network. I can't do that for you. You have to, still connect with other people and do one-to-ones, and do podcasts, and search out those podcasts. Like, where are these people and how do I find them? And like, you have to do all these things still, but you can't expect one thing to just be one and done and you're good and my business is great. You
Yeah.
have to continue to do the other parts. And so I think a lot of times I'm just trying to get people to stress out less, just like you said. It's like, let me just take this one little piece. Now you don't have to worry about that. Now go do all the other stuff that you do need to be worrying about, that you have to do on your own, that you have to do every day and on a regular basis. And it frees up your time to do the other things you need to do. Like before, maybe you were sitting in front of the computer for 3 hours trying to figure out this social media thing when you could have been at a luncheon
Yeah.
and meeting a bunch of people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it really comes back to the personal responsibility of, yes, I'm helping you with something. And yes, I'm telling you that for me, for several of my clients, for other people, this has worked. And I want this to work for you too. And we're going to give it our best shot to make it work. But at the same time, you have to also do your part on the other side to make the business work, because this is not the whole business. It's just the finance. It's just the marketing. It's just this piece.
It's, you brought up an interesting point there about, posting on social media versus going to a networking event. And it seems like there's always this, you can always say, well, there's this other opportunity cost, right? You can always say, I could be posting on social media, or I could be going to a networking event, or I could be going to a networking event, or I could be posting on social media, right?
Right.
Or I could be doing marketing versus actually working on the work that I've got piled up on my desk right now,
Right.
and so there's always this kind of, how am I going to prioritize my existing clients, finding new clients, in-person networking versus social media networking. There's constantly these decisions we have to make. But I think that, back to what you were originally saying is, this is part of why you get into business for yourself, right? This is, you get tired of doing what somebody else is demanding of you, and you
Mm-hmm.
want to do it your way, right? And so at the same time that it's stressful trying to manage all these different things, at least it's up to you to manage it, not to your
Yep.
boss, not to your supervisor, not to whoever, right, telling you what to do. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Yeah.
good deal. Just touching on that real quick though, in terms of in-person networking, because this has been a lot about social media and all this kind of stuff, is there still
Yeah.
room for that in the 21st century? Should, in
Oh yeah.
2020, should we still be, should we just be behind our computers, posting to social media 24/7, or should we still be out there actually meeting real people?
I think the real people thing is for online networking that I think a lot of people even do it, but they don't really know that they're doing it. And the one way that you would do that is to be in groups on Facebook or in LinkedIn or something, active groups where you can actually, go on and, make posts or answer. I'm just mostly answering questions when I'm
Mhm,
in there. I mean, I'm
mhm,
just, hey, somebody has a question. I'm like, yeah, I know the answer to that. Here's the answer. And so then I get these interactions on Messenger or DM or whatever that I actually get to interact with one specific person about a very specific topic. So that's a really great way to do, like online networking where you can actually interact with someone on a subject you know about, but you're not really worrying about, going out and like dressing up and all that stuff. But you're actually getting the same kind of interaction you would as a one-to-one meeting. And I'm just answering a ton of questions. Sometimes I get interaction out of them, sometimes I don't. But then I'm also seen as an expert because I'm answering a ton of questions. As far as the actual in-person networking, like in the local area, I think that there is a ton of opportunity for that, but I think people need to be a little bit more specific.
mhm.
When you just go to 50 million groups and you just have, like you just go to 5 groups a day and, you're out, here's my card, here's my card, here's my card. And you don't really have that message behind you that says, here's who I am, here's what I do. And it's very concise and specific. And that's where your brand comes in. Then no one's going to remember that. No one's going to remember that you were there. No one's going to, it's just going to be, here's my card, here's my card. Let me get to your cards. Let me put you on my email list and we're done. And so I try to really look for the specific groups that maybe are not in my industry, but are going to be in related industries. So I go to a coaches group here in Jacksonville. There's also a lawyers group. Those are great clients for me. There's a realtors group. And so I'm looking for very specific groups and not just saying, oh, it's a women's group. I go to a couple of those too, because there's a couple good ones. But, I'm looking for more specialized networking than I am just general networking. So I think if
Gotcha.
you can kind of focus on those kind of things and then look in the groups that you're in on Facebook and look not just at your own peer groups where you're in a group of financial advisors or I'm in a group of web designers, but in a group of, excuse me, small business owners, in a group of, coaches, just coaches, excuse me, then I think you're going to find more opportunities for networking because you've got these like you're looking at a specific group of people. You're not just looking at like general, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. So my marketing advisor talks about what he calls strategic positioning. Right? Is, in, like you said, if you're in marketing, don't hang out with a bunch of marketers, right? Because you're not
Yeah.
going to be using each other's services. But who do you want to be doing marketing for? What's your ideal client type? And then go find where they're meeting and go put yourself in the
Yeah.
middle of them. So yeah, absolutely. And that, and I think that's really interesting the way these different groups have formed, and then it's kind of, once you go to one, you meet a couple people that introduce you to this other group they go to, and so you start going to that group, and then you meet
Right.
some more people who introduce you to their group. And something I'm noticing is everybody belongs to a BNI group,
Yeah.
and they want you to come to their BNI group. But I've kind of managed not to follow up on some of on a lot of those invitations, and just keep going to the groups that seem a little bit looser, a little bit less formal, to
Mhm.
where it's just easier to just go purely for the sake of meeting people, and
Right.
introducing myself to people. So yeah, because I've only been doing this, you've been doing this 13 years. I've only been doing this a little under a year now. And so it's been interesting, learning the process, not only of, saying, hey, I do this for you, but also figuring out, okay, what groups and different locations, different times, where do I need to be putting my time, so that I'm
Mhm.
getting in front of not just a bunch of people, but people who I really want to be working with. And
Right.
I think that's been, a key lesson for me is it's not just quantity versus quality, right? And
Mhm.
there's casting a wide net, but then there's also, if you cast that net so wide, there's going to be a lot of stuff in that net that you didn't mean to get. And so
Right.
you've got to be careful about that as well.
And I think if your brand is really solid, then you can cast a wide net, but what you're that resonates with your brand. So it's if it resonates with those people that you're looking for, you might talk to 50 people in a group, but five of them or three of them might be like, yeah, that's the person I want to have a one-on-one with or talk
Yeah.
more with or whatever. So I think that as long as you have a solid brand that makes sense, that's powerful enough, because sometimes we don't have a powerful enough brand, and by powerful I mean something where it really touches someone and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to know more about this. And me telling people I can do marketing in 5 days, it's a little shocking, like for the whole year. That's a little bit like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so that's what I mean by powerful. It doesn't always have to be shocking and powerful, but it can just be impactful in some way to the people that it needs to be impactful to.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting. Good deal. So if people want to get a hold of you, either to, talk more about marketing, do business with you, whatever, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
ElizabethPampalone.com. And if you Google me, I'm like, Google has a whole page on me. They've got all this stuff.
Gotcha.
Um,
Awesome.
but yeah, and I have my ebook on my website. So if you go to
Okay.
my website, it's on the homepage. You can download that for free.
Awesome. Good deal. So any last thoughts, any last piece of advice for small business owners struggling with their marketing, with their branding?
I would say stress out less,
Okay.
do more ahead of time, and if you can come to see me, we don't have to do 5 days, but even one day can get you so much further ahead than you are right now. So,
Gotcha.
if we can take one day and take something off your plate for the next year, let's do it.
Awesome. Awesome. Good deal. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here. To
Thank
everybody
you.
listening and watching, thank you so much. You can find links to Elizabeth's content down in the show notes or the description. With that, I am Jeremy Wells. This is the J Wells CFO Show. Thank you very much. Have a great day.